Hello, I'm John Hind, Director of Compass Resolution Mediation and Coaching and author of the Divorce Manual. Welcome to my Divorce Financial Options Model and Workbook, creating financial options for fair outcomes. Now, with the right support, I believe that most divorcing couples can reach their own financial agreements at minimum cost. This is why I spend a lot of my time when I'm not mediating and coaching, creating resources to support our Compass Resolution divorcing clients with this aim in mind. Indeed, last year, 2025, my focus was very much on creating a workbook and financial options model to help our clients prepare their financial options to discuss in their first financial mediation session together. This financial options workbook, together with my divorce manual, form the core tools and resources for divorcing clients who wish to reach their own financial agreements at minimum costs in mediation. Now, to make the most of this webinar and workbook, please familiarize yourself with the workbook and the case study of Bob and Jane I'm going to be referring to. So I've done a separate case study and the workbook, and you can find these resources as a Compass Resolution client. Anyway, you can find these resources free, and they'll provide context and hopefully bring this webinar a little more to life. So what are my aims? Well, I've divided this webinar into three, hopefully bite-size or digestible size videos covering each of the three main aims you'll see on this slide. The first video, I'll explain why I created the financial options model and workbook for our divorcing clients. The second, I'll provide an overview of the workbook and the problem-solving model with its 4 building blocks of need and 7-step process. And in the third and final video in this webinar, I'll use a financial case study about Bob and Jane's divorce. I'll use that to explain how they used the workbook and support tools to arrive at their first financial mediation session with clarity and confidence, ready to explain, explore, and expand on their options together, feeling empowered and ready to reach their own fair financial agreements in mediation at minimum cost. So let's look at why I created this financial options model and workbook. Well, for Bob and Jane, everything is very confusing and extremely worrying when their marriage comes to an end. And they ask themselves some very important questions. Where are we going to live? What about our housing needs? How can we afford to live our income needs? How are we going to support our children's needs? And how are we going to have a half-decent retirement when the time comes? What do we do now? Where do we go for support? How much is it all going to cost? How long would it all take? What's fair? Look, these are all very normal questions as Jane and Bob face a great deal of uncertainty and worry when they separate. They need clear answers. So that's Jane and Bob at their level. So what's happening at the national level for divorcing couples that has driven me to create this workbook and the problem-solving model? Well, based on some research between 2022 and 2024, a group of top UK legal academics in the world of family law teamed up to create the Fair Share Report, sorting out money and property on divorce. Now, the report was based on extensive research involving 2,415 divorcing couples. Now, the key question for the team and the couples was, how do they arrive at financial and property arrangements on divorce? And what this team discovered was quite shocking. Well, I think it's quite shocking, and which we'll talk about now. A lack of knowledge, money, and fear led to, among other things, over half of all the divorcees who completed the survey reached a financial agreement for themselves without any support, and especially not legal support, without information. These couples were very likely to end up in court if they felt unable to reach joint decisions with their exes due to a breakdown of trust and communication. And Thirdly, and a little bit sad for me as a mediator and former solicitor, there was still a great deal of misunderstanding about mediation, how this works, and the lots of support offered. So what we've got now, therefore, is thousands of separating couples every year reach uninformed, unfair financial agreements, often believing that these agreements represent a fair division of the assets, and they certainly do not. So what's the answer to this national challenge? To answer this, let's look again at the case of Bob and Jane. Bob and Jane case study, key facts and figures. Well, as you can see, Bob, he's 52, self-employed web designer, he's self-employed. Jane Roberts, at age 49, she's a senior bank manager. They began living together to 2003, married 2005, separated a year ago. So they were 21 years together. I'll use this Bob and Jane case study to broadly show how they use my workbook and 7-step process to prepare for their first mediation session. Their challenge is going to be similar to many other separating couples, which is how essentially to restructure and stretch their financial resources to meet the 4 main areas of need: housing need, income needs, children needs, and retirement needs. So let me continue with their facts and figures. And I've highlighted in yellow what I think are some of the key ones. They've also got, as you see, a divorce conditional order, the old decree nisi, and it's due, well, I haven't got that, sorry, it's due to be made in 2 months, which is why they're quite keen to get on with things and reach a financial agreement so the judge can make that binding by consent, by agreement, once they've got their divorce order. They've got 2 children. They've got Amy, age 16, and Billy, age 14. Both children attend the grammar school, and Amy's hoping to go to university after A-levels. Now you'll see that they're all still living together at Winter Lodge, which is causing a significant amount of tension and stress, especially since Bob has had a new partner for 6 months. Okay, let's look at, I've highlighted some of the financial figures in yellow again, which I want us to pay particular attention to as this webinar unfolds. You'll see that they've got a family home. It's got a net value, that's after costs and mortgage, etc., of £600,000. There's a rental property with a net value of £100,000, but you'll note I've highlighted in yellow, this was inherited 10 years ago by Jane on the death of her aunt. And this may or may not become significant when Bob and Jane are looking at their financial options for mediation. There's a few current accounts, no consistent value, so we're not treating that as an asset. There's some savings and investments, not an enormous amount, but there's £50,000. It could come in useful in sole and joint names. They've each got a car, not dissimilar values. Jane's got some credit cards of 2,000, and Bob's got some credit cards and a secure loan totaling £5,000. Moving on, there are some pensions. Bob's got an armed forces pension. He's retired after 24 years. He joined the army in 1994. And you'll see I've highlighted again, possibly a significant fact. He joined 9 years before he began living with Jane. So he's saying that 9 years of his pension can be attributed to 9 years before they married and, in fact, got together with Jane. That's when he was 21. His pension currently has a value, cash equivalent value of £880,000, but the pension significantly is a statutory unfunded defined benefits scheme. I won't talk too much about that at the moment, but that may be significant when it comes to looking at dividing pensions. He has no other pensions apart from his basic state pension, which he'll get at age 68. Jane, you'll see on the other hand, has a series of private pensions, money purchase or defined contributions, otherwise known as, from her various jobs over the years with the bank. And she began her first banking job at age 26, the year she met Bob. Her pensions total £740,000. Right, got some incomes here, a couple of incomes. You'll see that Jane earns significantly more than Bob. Her net monthly is £8,000 and Bob's net monthly is £3,000. And since they're both living together at the moment, they're each contributing to the joint monthly expenditure, although Jane's putting £4,000 into an account and Bob is paying £1,000 into the account. That leaves Bob with about £2,000 after joint expenditure and Jane with about £4,000 after joint expenditure. So, thinking about those facts and figures, there are some kind of key features here that we ought to pay attention to. The resources they've got to stretch and restructure between them to buy these two suitable houses are finite. There's not surplus. They haven't got enough just to split down the middle and buy two suitable houses, they would say. There is a significant disparity in incomes and borrowing capacities. How's that going to play itself out? Especially when we look at mortgage capacities, for example. There are two dependent children that need looking after, supporting, especially the younger one, or the older one, sorry, who's going to university, hopes to, and there's university costs going to need to be paid. And interestingly, some of the resources are non-matrimonial, including the rental property that Jane has that she inherited from her aunt 10 years ago, you remember. And Bob has some pre-marriage pension contributions or period of pre-marriage for his armed forces of 9 years. You remember that as well. So two different types of pensions, which may be significant. Those are some of the kind of key facts and features. We'll look at these factors in more detail and the part they play in the options Jane and Bob develop using the 7-step process and workbook as this webinar unfolds. But before we do, what I want to do is just look at Jane and Bob's key overriding objectives. So that's their facts and figures. I would have taken those down from them in the pre-mediation meetings, and I would have established with them their key objectives, driving their commitment to work together in mediation. So let's look at that. It's quite an important part to anchor them into the process. So Bob and Jane have told me they want the following things. They want to reach a financial agreement together if possible, keeping their costs and their time to a minimum. That's effectively what most divorcing clients want, but whether they can or not is another matter. That's what we're going to look at. Look at. Number two, this financial agreement needs to meet enough of their priority financial needs. Now, I've made reference there to the 4 building blocks of need that I've already referred to: housing needs, income needs, children needs, retirement needs, which we'll talk much more about in this webinar. And they want to meet those needs from the financial resources available to them, which again I'll look at in more detail. And very importantly, a financial agreement which is fair to them both in their views and fair in law in all the circumstances. So it's one thing, of course, having a clear shared overriding objective, which they do have, but quite another knowing how to go about achieving this together. So I think to start with, anyway, Bob and Jane need 3 main things as they prepare for their first financial mediation session. They will need a clear, structured process, timeframes, and costs to give them kind of clear direction and focus. They need trusted family professionals to support them early on, aligned with their aims and objectives, providing clear, dependable information and advice every step of the way as and when needed, keeping things carefully managed and contained, and of course their costs down. And thirdly, they need clear, accessible and reliable information and tools, providing them with clarity and confidence as they navigate this process journey, working towards the first financial mediation session. You'll see I've highlighted in green this because this is what drives me, has driven me to create my workbook and my financial options model and 7 steps with the support service that we at Compass Resolution provide our separating and divorcing clients who wish to reach their own financial agreements together. Now you can have a quick tea break if you want to. I'm going to end this video and begin the next video in a moment for you, but have a break by all means as I stop the play now.